Welcome to the show. It is the Mead Truth. And
welcome, everybody.
Tonight, got everybody in the audience tonight. I'm glad to host. I'm Steve Lake. I got Mark Burnett from the GOP. He is the chairman. I've got Joe Redmond, our co-chair.
Good evening.
And tonight we got a special guest, Nancy Tate. I know we stirred the pot last week quite a bit.
Good deal.
There's a lot of things we talked about for voting and the elections that are coming up. We're inside of 50 days now.
54 days.
And it's going to get here before you know it, folks. And one of the interesting things we talked about last week, and I'm glad to have Nancy back on the show, is because we want you to know, like, from the source about Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. And all I want you to walk away from tonight is just remember that both of those vote yes.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And November 8th, vote yes.
Vote yes. This is an amendment to a constitution that you, the people, we the people, have set in motion the change of how we live and breathe as Kentuckians under a constitution. We are under a republic which is made of laws. So Kentucky is about to change its law. And I think it's great that you're taking the front on this. Tell us about it, Nancy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's Constitutional Amendment number 1 and then Constitutional Amendment number 2. So Constitutional Amendment number 1, to me, it's very, hopefully, non-controversial. Basically, what it is that, as you know, in odd years, the legislative branch has 30 days. In the even years, we have 60 days in order to pass the budget. So what we're doing is, according to the Constitution, we have to adjourn by April 15th of every year. So what we're asking for is we're asking the public to vote yes to allow us the opportunity to not use all of our 30 days and 60 days before April 15th. What we want to do is we want to be able to take those and not sine die on April 15th. Sine die means the end is here and that we won't come back until January of the following year. So what we're asking for is let's just say hypothetically in 2023, that's a 30-day session.
Right.
We want to save 10 days of those 30 days and just use them later on in the year. Just for example, if another situation like COVID were to happen, or the tornadoes in Western Kentucky, or the floods in Eastern Kentucky, the legislative branch wants to be able to call ourselves back into session to address those disasters.
Amen.
So I want to point something out. So
Yes, sir.
Y'all usually get done. Like, we have an agenda, we go to work, we legislate, and there's a lot of bipartisan support in our current legislative. I think there's good between the Democrats and the Republicans. I mean,
For the most part.
yeah,
We've got
especially
some social issues that we absolutely adamantly disagree on. We'll talk about some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. But
that's right.
One of the things but the folks that we have elected right now, they go to work, they get the work done. There's time left. It's not like you're lollygagging. And I think you had told me before, it's like $168,000 a day to hold session.
That's exactly $166,000 a day to hold session.
I was two over, but that's pretty good ballpark.
All right, absolutely.
But to a taxpayer, $2,000 matters. So
it does. It does.
Every penny counts.
But you're, by not having longer legislation, giving yourself raises or anything like that we've seen at certain different levels maybe perform, you're holding character of the legislation to be able to say, hey, we're done.
That's correct.
And we're going to save our time, and we're not going to just work because we have to work, and we're going to say, what happens if you don't work? Are you going to come back and do the other 10 days that are left in the year? You got to use them, right? You can't just give them back.
I mean, in theory, we could, but I find it highly unlikely that we will. Because if you think about all the special sessions,
right?
Every year there's at least one special session.
Sure.
So this could be the special session.
That's right.
It could be the special session. It could be. But I know there's still meetings going on and things preparing. So you could come.
That's not what she's talking about, though. That's not what the Constitutional Amendment's talking about. All the special meetings that get held all the time.
No. But let me get there. So if they have the ability, they can actually come in and act on something they did they met in their interim committee.
No one said the key yet. The key is right now the governor controls the legislature.
That's what I was about to go into. Go there, Joe.
April 15th.
That's right.
The governor decides, well, you know what? I don't need you, Nancy.
That's correct.
I don't even want to hear from you.
That's correct.
Just stay home.
Right.
I'll take care of this. This is an emergency.
So by voting
I'll
yes,
do what I think is best. Heck, I don't care. The people's representatives, I really just don't.
That's right. That's what I was going to come back to. You're bringing it right up, Joe, is that you're giving the people the option to bring back and legislate, because our representatives are representing the people.
Amendment 1 fundamentally, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Fundamentally shifts with some restrictions, because they still have to, in other words, there could be like 3 of those emergencies later on. And the first 2 emergencies burned up all 10 of their days.
That's right.
And now there's no more days left for them. And it's October the 15th, and they need to have, they would desire to be in session, but the governor says, no. Well, guess what? They're still not going to be able to be in session unless the governor wants them in
That's
session.
right. So let's bring some background into it, Nancy, though. There's background behind this.
Well, but we did do, just to add to what you're saying, though, we did pass legislation, though, that after an executive order or an emergency order has been declared after 30 days, then we're automatically called back into session.
Oh, I didn't know
So the
that. That's
governor
good.
no
That's
longer
good.
has that
Yeah,
opportunity.
he tried to sue over that, right?
He did, absolutely.
And
Yeah. So after 30
lost.
days, we're called back into
And our
session.
Attorney General did a boom bang job shutting that down.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, because we have the latitude within our Constitution to be able to do that.
So this
Well, we
legislation
call
is.
it Article 1. Generally, the Congress, the legislature gets to make those rules.
We make those rules.
But that's
exactly
And override the executive whenever the executive vetoes.
That's why
it.
we have 3
We
branches
call
of
it
government
making law. That's sort of kind of what we do.
that we follow, not just make it
No,
up as
it,
we
it
go.
was ridiculous. Some of the stuff he sued about was just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's what I want to get to.
But that's all he does.
Well,
I mean, he doesn't lead. He doesn't put forth legislation. He waits and he reacts and sues everybody.
Well, that's what he did when he was the Attorney General.
Yeah.
If I may add. That's exactly right.
That's
So
exactly.
that's his standard operating procedure.
So let's go back to the background. I want to
sir.
pull that out. So you guys decided as a legislature that this was important. Give some of those backgrounds that really led up to the meat of what's going into this amendment, and tell us why.
Yeah, and primarily what really was the catalyst, as Joe was talking about, it was truly COVID. You know, and the fact that Sonny died on April 15th, we were encouraged to leave, just leave and go home. I got this under control. We truly have 3 branches of government, right?
Right.
We've got the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. And we needed to have been called back into session to address very important matters in Kentucky. But we were not given that opportunity.
And I think that, shutting down. Go ahead.
She's got both hands on it. She's strangling it.
Yeah.
But she just told you exactly the truth. If you're a civic-minded person,
That's right.
if you're an authoritarian, then no, I don't need to hear from the legislature at all, ever.
Well,
I just soon stay on the couch.
I can tell you
I've
that.
got a singular person I can hold responsible for, well, I contacted her. I laid myself off from my job that I had at the time and didn't get any unemployment benefits. And when I tried to, of course, you try to query the system to find out what's going on, there was no, it's a black hole. You
Yeah.
can send email all day long. You can send, I'm talking about beautiful written, well written.
There were 400,000 unopened emails that were sent.
Mine was,
That's ridiculous.
I had a dozen of those.
Unopened.
I had a dozen.
I cringe when I see a notification that says I even have 1 email and I haven't
Yeah.
answered it yet.
Hey,
I'm
me
like,
too.
it's
That's
like
right.
irresponsible if you don't answer your email.
Right. If you're a professional business person, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's correct. There were 400,000 unopened, according to Mike Harmon's
Mm-hmm.
audit.
Wow.
Right.
But that's just one
Who's
example.
running for governor?
Just
Example.
That's
insane.
just a small example.
That's one
The reason
example.
why we really needed it, we needed the legislature to be in session at that time to remind the executive branch, look, we fund you guys.
So-
we don't have to fund you guys. Okay, we can completely redo this whole thing next year. So just a reminder.
Well,
do your job.
I think we focus on the amendment, and there's good clout in why we're doing this. But moving forward, there are people that were disadvantaged, which is one of the other reasons. So who do you think was most impacted by that inability for you guys to come back and legislate?
So really, if you take into consideration why we have government in the first place, government is in place, period, in order to protect those who can't protect themselves.
That's right.
The weakest, right? And so then therefore all of us were weak at that point because none of us had the ability to
Say no.
go to church. None of us had the ability to go to work.
You could get an abortion.
You
if you wanted to.
officially-
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You
You know?
You could go to the liquor
a
store.
box
That's
store.
exactly right. Yeah, but you couldn't even get your darn hair cut, or you couldn't even, so that
Picking and
he
choosing.
couldn't go to school, and so the children weren't even allowed to go. And now we're going to see the repercussions of every single one of those single-handed decisions
I think
for decades.
I think that's why we did so successfully opening up in July as a dog grooming business, because there were a lot of dog groomers at home, and they said, please help, when we were able to open our doors, because that was when businesses started to open back up.
Sure.
But
and we talked about, how many times do we hear we're all in this together? We're all in this together. But none of us could go get our hair cut.
no.
But
Nancy Pelosi did.
that's exactly right.
I'm just saying. Did I throw that out there?
That's
You
exactly
did.
right. Yeah, but other people were a lot more tailored and a lot more clean than we were. Yeah, so it was quite obvious that we were not in this together.
Now, I can count them on both hands, because you're busy, I'm busy. I've been at numerous engagements. You are going on tour anywhere you get a chance, and obviously we're going to take this opportunity because this is the GOP's thing right here, the Me Truth. And we like getting the information out there and educating our constituents so that they can make an educated vote. And whether you're a constituent of the GOP or the Democratic Party, we want you to make an educated and informed. If you don't like what we are putting out, it's facts. So
It is
facts,
That's correct.
facts are what should drive people, not opinions.
Right.
And so while we do some opinions, and we have some opinions about different individuals, you cannot deny the facts. And if you want the ability for the people to speak on your behalf, you need to vote yes for Amendment 1.
There you go, right there.
And that's what that's all about.
That's correct.
So I know you're passionate about it. What do you think the reaction is from the state right now? Because we just saw this in Kansas. It got knocked down. There was a ton of money poured in from the
Constitutional Amendment number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's 2.
I would say so. I would say let's make sure we keep them straight because we haven't mentioned number
That's
2
right.
yet.
We're getting there.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
man, you didn't segue that good.
We're not getting there yet.
I'm still thinking about, I was getting ready to ask what happened in Kansas.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'm
Constitutional
getting
Amendment
there.
Number 2.
I
Yeah.
know that it had to do with it.
You guys got to let me do my transitions, man. So
Sorry.
anytime you do a constitutional amendment, like we saw in Kansas, there's a lot of resistance. You have been out and about on Amendment 1 and Amendment 2.
That's correct.
But do you feel like we're going to have the same challenges with Amendment 1 as we will with Amendment 2? And we'll let you know about Amendment 2 here in just a second. But do you think we're going to see that money pour into the state? Or will the money pour into the state for Amendment 2, will it have an impact on our Amendment 1?
Yeah, there will be money poured into the state, but I don't think that there will be that much of a difference for amendment number 1. Yeah, we can talk a lot about what happened in Kansas. Okay?
Right.
And so let's talk about 2. Constitutional Amendment number 2.
Sure.
What it says basically is that according to the Constitution of Kentucky, there is no right to an abortion or the funding thereof. So the whole thing is important, but your tax dollars won't be used, nor will there be interpretation by the judicial branch of what is or
That's
isn't.
the key right there.
in
Ding, ding,
our
ding, ding, ding.
Constitution.
Take us there,
That's
Joe.
exactly
A future legislature. 100.
That's right.
There's 100 right now that we have.
100
70
representatives. Oh, and
75
75
Republicans, and we have 38 Kentucky state senators, of which right now I think
31, I think, or
31 are Republicans. Now, if you flip that and you make them all Democrats, you make Democrats and the Republicans are the minority party. Yes, the Democrats can pass a law to make abortion legal.
Yeah,
They can
10
pass a
years
law,
from now, 10
but
years from
what
now.
they can't do, we can't have a single judge sitting in Frankfurt saying, "Well, I've decided that the state constitution allows that to be. We're gonna just it's actually never mind what the legislature said.
That's right.
Never mind what anybody else thinks.
Sure.
This is what the state. This is what the state. So this clarifies for future judges, robed individuals. They can't just find a way. Oh, there it is right there. We can have abortions.
Yeah.
To that point,
It clarifies.
Which is exactly what
forever.
happened 49 years ago at the Supreme Court level.
Right. And so,
Exactly
because
right.
of the recent ruling of Roe v. Wade
That's
at
right.
the Supreme Court,
June 20th.
our state now has the authority to make its own
Correct.
decision about it. And that's what this amendment is all about.
Correct.
And
That's
so
correct.
to that point, the danger we're in is the political opposition at a national level coming in from other states, telling our state
That's right. Exactly.
how our values should be based on their states, and that's why you got to get out and vote yes,
right,
for this constitutional amendment, and let them bring their money here. You know,
let them waste their money.
Yeah, and that's what waste their money.
But that's what Dobbs was supposed to do, right? Dobbs was supposed to allow Kentucky to decide for Kentucky whether or not we wanted to make abortion legal or illegal.
That's
right.
Correct.
We get to choose. In Kentucky whether or not we do that.
But
we
this,
do that
this
through our
amendment
legislature.
doesn't make it illegal.
No, it absolutely doesn't. But
correct.
what it does is clarify that if, like you said,
It takes the power away
in
from
100
the future
years,
judge.
if 100 years from now, here's the thing, right? If the legislature says in 100 years that they want to allow abortion in Kentucky, this doesn't stop that.
This does
Correct.
not stop that. That's exactly
What it stops from happening is when a decision right now goes to the Kentucky Supreme Court, that the Kentucky Supreme Court cannot misread the Kentucky Constitution and basically say, oh, there's a right to privacy here in the Kentucky State Constitution that allows for abortion. What Nancy and the legislature has put forth as an amendment, they can't just do this they can't do this as just legislation.
Correct.
They can't clarify through the
Correct.
legislation. That we have to amend the Constitution to clarify the Constitution, and we're going to specifically spell it out. There is nothing that can be read in the Kentucky Constitution that supports abortion, nor the payment with tax dollars, nor tax dollar payment or tax dollar funding
right.
of abortion.
That's right.
It's going to make it very difficult for a future judge to look
That's right.
people of Kentucky in the eye and say, I have, look on page 26, paragraph 3, that little thing right there in the state constitution. I think that means when they wrote that and they actually approved it, they actually meant to allow abortion. We're clarifying that for
Yeah.
ever.
And people say, well, I didn't know that our tax dollars were being used to fund abortions. You can trust me that they have been.
Have been for decades.
Have been for decades. It's approximately $500,000 that's going annually to Planned Parenthood
Sure.
and other organizations on an annual basis. And that's not necessary. Those are federal dollars. And so what we've thought in the past is that, and we were adamant about it. We were thinking that none of our state dollars were being used to fund abortions. And then when you start pulling back, the
Purse
onion,
strings.
that's exactly, when you start pulling back those, the onion, you see where the money is. And it's going to be it might be a nonprofit who is endorsing and supporting abortions. Yeah. So, and through our Medicaid, right? So there's ways for that to happen without there being solid awareness. So what we want to do is make sure that there's solid awareness that that's not going to happen.
I agree. And I would point out to everybody that's listening, I know you're out there and you get frustrated when you see something right in front of you and you're like, I can't do anything about it. I promise you, your vote matters.
Absolutely.
This vote at this election on November the 8th, your voice matters. I know you go to everybody's down and depressed about what happened in the last national election because maybe it didn't turn out that way, or you got different propaganda from different media sources about how we got robbed and this is wrong and that's wrong. I know we fixed a lot of that. I'll talk about that later. But my point to you is I don't know how you could get any more evidence about how something could be so wrong, and that how so many people have profited off of this.
That's right.
This problem, and now you have a vote. Your vote actually does make a difference.
Yeah, let me talk just a little bit about that because you brought it up earlier. Okay, this constitutional amendment has been passed in 3 states, Tennessee, Alabama, and Louisiana. So what we did as a legislative branch, we modeled Louisiana's language. Now, in Louisiana, that was the last state that passed this constitutional amendment before Roe versus Wade was overturned. In that, call it a campaign, if you will, the pro-life organization spent $1 million to communicate. The pro-choice communicated $2 million. So now you're talking about a $3 million race. move forward, June 24th in Kansas, the pro-life group spent $11 million and the pro-choice spent $13 million. So it went from a $3 million race to a $23 million race just because of the Roe versus Wade.
So there obviously have to be profits from this if they're going to spend that much money.
Heck yeah.
Writing's on the wall.
Absolutely. It's a $5 billion industry.
Yeah. So let me ask
Killing
you.
babies.
Killing babies.
$5 billion.
Well,
It feeds the pharmaceutical industry.
But we're also at the precipice of a change in our culture. We're changing. And it's gonna take a while to change the culture. It's not gonna be we just turn the light on.
No.
And we went from
it's
a
an
culture of
educational
death.
process.
Absolutely. It's an educational.
We just can't go from a culture of death to a culture of life. And
Overnight.
It's a big change.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of where that $23 million came from. Can you briefly explain what happened in Kansas?
Yeah. So what happened in Kansas, if you look at the constitutional amendment, if you've had the opportunity, I've looked at it and I go, you look at it, you read it out loud. You have somebody else read it to you. I swear, I have no idea how I would have voted. I have no idea how
It wasn't clear.
It was not clear. It absolutely, to me, was not clear. So, but what we did was we tried to make this constitutional amendment in Kentucky as clear as possible. There is no right to an abortion in the Constitution or the funding thereof.
So this is where throughout in my family, especially the female counterparts in my family, I've had to go toe to toe with them about this, and I'm like, this isn't for you. You would have never, based on how we were raised as a family unit, this would have never had to been an approach for you. But they have the complaint that a woman should not be told that she can or cannot do something with her body. And, they brought up the argument of augmented parts and all that other stuff. And I said, yeah, but that's your life. The other life doesn't get a vote.
That's exactly right.
And so, and I said, I go back to George Carlin. We had this argument. Okay, this is the sarcastic part, okay? So you can't have all right, so do I get taxes for the baby? It's in your womb. I got a doctor's note. Do I get to collect taxes? Because if you ever watch the old George Carlin, it was a joke. It was funny. He was a comedian of his time before he passed. But, those are going to be residual questions I'm sure that the governments will answer over time. But to my family struggle that most people will probably have when they're faced with this dilemma, until you're faced with it, you don't know. But the people that are impacted most by this are lower income families,
quite possibly,
dilapidated areas or neighborhood or incomes in different areas of our country. Not just, I wouldn't say Kentucky, but I'd say that there are segments and groups of people that this is a lot more likely to occur in based off the Planned Parenthood statistics. And I know that they'll talk about race and creed and where a lot of that happens that on a national number, but they don't ever talk about locally to our state. And I would say that drug addiction probably plays a big role in why pregnancy occurs in our state and or alcohol or other things. Again, the things that we say are non-Christian values, et cetera. But there is a dilemma there that there is going to be a group of people that are who are going to tell me what I can do and what I can't do.
Sure.
How do you have that conversation? I mean, I gave you my example, but you got to, I know you're talking to so many people. How do you battle that?
Yeah, that's okay. So part of it is the education piece, right?
Right.
It truly is. We've been told for how many years that it's a fetus. It's not. It's just a fetus. It's a fetus. Most people don't even know that fetus is Latin for human baby. It's a fetus. Well, what does that mean, guys? What does that mean? That's a word that you're obviously using, but have you ever looked it up? It's human baby. It's Latin for human baby. Well, I don't know. I don't use Latin. Well, you are if you're using fetus, right? So there's play on words in order to confuse people. So a lot of it is communication, and then whenever women see the ultrasounds and their husbands or boyfriends see the ultrasounds too, then they see that it is a human baby.
That's right.
49 years ago, I'll give those Supreme Court justices a bye. I don't want to, but I'll give them a bye. They didn't have the ultrasound. They don't have the modern technology that we have. So we have the modern technology. We know that the heart beats and starts beating 18 days after conception.
That's right.
They usurped legislative authority is what they did.
They truly did. I mean, they did.
And I think fundamentally, we're having this discussion, and I don't mind having the discussion. We can talk about this all night.
Me too.
I don't know that. I mean, I don't know if we're going to come to the end. But this has nothing to do with Amendment 2. Amendment 2 is all about who has the authority. In Kentucky, we're going to assure that the legislature, your state legislature, has the authority to talk about this and to restrict abortions, to allow abortions under what circumstances, under this, under that, whatever the circumstances are. The state not a judge who decides tomorrow.
Right.
I think it should be like this. We're clarifying that. That's what we're doing
right.
on November the 8th.
And I agree with you, Joe, but you've also heard, well, what about rape and incest? I mean, there's all that. That's
the
part
health
of
of the mother and all
we're
that.
talking about way less than 1%.
Well,
of
I know,
all
but
instances,
that's all the confusion that's going to be thrown into this. Again, rape and incest has absolutely nothing to do with this constitutional amendment.
No, not at all.
That's a policy-related issue that could be addressed. Will be
With the
addressed
legislature.
With the legislature,
Yep.
But this
50
has
different
absolutely
legislatures.
nothing to do
So
with
Nancy,
Exactly.
you bring up a great point when you talk about policy. Ladies and gentlemen, when we do reference back to when the Roe v. Wade in the 40s and when all of that came out, it was a different time. There was a different technology. Communities, states should be responsible for caring for their people. People and communities should help take care of people. We've come so accustomed to these big conglomerates that, you don't want to have, don't come on over here. We'll help you take care of this. Okay, we'll just throw it away. It'll be all over tomorrow. You'll be okay. And we didn't create a pathway for youth or individuals who become pregnant. We've made it so you can just erase it. Don't worry about that. And now
We've created a culture of death.
They've created
but to my point,
We
and
are currently reaping what we sowed.
That's right. But what we haven't done is we haven't created a support path to show that life is important.
Yeah.
We've demoralized it.
I question the ability of government to support anybody.
But
Well, it's not the government, though. He's
that's what I'm
talking about us.
He's talking about the government.
I'm talking
I'm
talking
about
about
us.
government should not take care of or be involved in programs like the folks that are doing the abortions and feeding our taxpayers. If you become pregnant, the community should help create a pathway for that life to exist.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give you. I'm going to bring this.
I'm pretty sure I can't get pregnant.
No.
I want to step in.
Go ahead.
Because I'm going to take us back to let's go back to the 1950s.
Okay.
Right, we're in the 1950s. You know, a girl gets pregnant. You know, she's scared to death of her family. She's scared. Her father is.
She would be ostracized.
Oh, because back then, it's like you said, there was no family structure that allowed for the mistake to be taken care of.
That's right.
They wanted the mistake to go away, right? They didn't, so the girl, the young lady is now, she feels like she's stuck. So she did something that she even thought was horrible, that she would never do, but she felt like there was nothing else she could do. That's what you're saying.
That's right.
She felt like she was between a rock and a hard place. And either this young man marries her, that was the way it was, right? And we all know how that ends usually. And then, or she had to go. A lot of times the families would send them off.
That's right.
Well, we saw that in Yellowstone.
Some obscure aunt for 9 months, and then all of a sudden a new cousin comes to live with us or something. But and that was one of the best case scenarios.
That's correct.
A lot of times the girl was just left.
Yeah.
And so this was the fuel that allowed Roe versus Wade to happen, because people were looking at that, the judges were looking at that, not because, hey, we need this abortion industry. They were looking at, man, we've really screwed these young ladies up for the last 30 years. Well, if we would have just got rid of the baby, allowed them to get rid of the baby, this wouldn't have done anything to them. They'd be able to move on with life. We all know that it tore many of them were tore up even further.
That's correct.
With mental and emotionally
That's correct.
and things. And we, we didn't get that baby into our community. right? Who knows? There's a
Well, you're bringing it into where I was trying to go with the conversation. When you bring the baby into the community, this is the one thing that I would love to ask the legislation to do, because Nancy, as we get this thing passed, which I know we will,
we're going to pass it.
We're going to vote yes.
The state of Kentucky is going to do it.
We're going to do this.
But when that baby does become part of the community and we can show that there's a pathway, in some cases there won't be a pathway. There won't be a parental role for that child because the person having the child is not responsible enough for the child.
Sure.
And what I would like to see in Kentucky in conjunction with that is a faster process for those who don't have children who are willing to take on that responsibility. Right now, it costs thousands of dollars to get certified to take care of somebody else's child as a foster parent. It takes so many. It's harder to become a foster parent than it is to go and have a baby. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I would hope for the many families out there that can't have kids that would look to foster as a pathway. This is what I talk about when the community takes care of. And I know we have a great foster program in the state of Kentucky, but I just think that we eliminate by making it so difficult, those who could be great and caring homes, the opportunity to help be part of the solution for that pathway.
Sure.
And that's one of the things I always talk to when I talk about folks. I said, it shouldn't be the government's problem to take care of your baby. But if it is, there should be a pathway for that baby to get the best care that it can without it being such a bureaucratic
We should
process.
be supporting those families who take on that responsibility willingly.
Yeah.
I want to go a step further, if I might. I know we're way off a topic tonight.
No, we're good.
Well,
We're still talking about Amendment 2. We're good.
Yeah. So we are. We're kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but I want to say this: when you talk about adoption, right? Not just foster, but adoption. When you get to the level of adoption, it is hard. It's hard on families because if you have a young couple or a young lady who says, "Hey, I want to give up my baby. I can't take care of it." Whatever, like if you they put them in the boxes
Safe
now,
haven
the
baby
safe haven boxes, which I know is another thing that's near and dear to you.
Absolutely.
And what happens? Tell me what happens to a parent's right. Can they come back later and say, "Hey, I dropped the baby off"?
No, they can't. Yeah.
So
they relinquish all
but if she was in a hospital and said, "Hey, I don't want this baby and I want to abandon this baby. I don't want to take this baby home with me," right?
She can exercise the safe haven laws,
but she can come back and get the baby.
She relinquishes her rights to that baby.
Well, there's a lot of
technically, yeah. I think morally you're exactly right, but legally I question that statement because I see all the time courts of law that are saying, well,
yeah,
that mother now has grown up and now she feels responsible.
I think you've seen those in the past. I don't know that.
No,
you've
it
seen
still
recent.
happens.
Yeah,
it still happens
in Kentucky.
In Kentucky,
okay.
Yeah,
right.
you
it
have.
Depends.
They'll be in. Are
they private adoption?
No. This is fostering with the hopes of adoption, and then the mother was had maybe legal troubles or whatever, but this is a newborn baby, may have been born with addicted to drugs or something, because and now and so you go you put this baby with a foster family for 18 months, 2 years, sometimes 3 years, and then the mother can come back and get her.
Right. Okay, there's a difference. I was asking about the adoption process. You're asking about the foster care process.
But yes.
Okay,
But,
gotcha.
there's a crossover there.
There is.
And I'm just trying to get to, how do we...
Adoption takes a long time.
Once a baby has been in a family for that long, is it really healthy for the baby to pull that baby out of that situation because the mother says, "Oh, I want the baby back"? Well, how do we get past that? Can we not?
We'll get Dr. Phil on the show.
Well, no, I think you're bringing up.
I
think you're bringing up a really important point, and I don't know if y'all remember the Children First program that was introduced. While in theory it was excellent, but whenever we in the States we had the latitude in order to be able to implement that. So that actually was started, but there's some pretty major holes in that, right? The thought is with Children First is that you do whatever from a state's perspective to keep the children and the parents together. In the perfect world, that's exactly what you would want to do.
Absolutely.
But we know we don't live in a perfect world, whether there's drug addiction.
That's absolutely true.
Substance use addiction has just ravaged Kentucky. So what we've done is there's this there's a contradiction between trying to expedite the foster care and adoption process and children first. So as a legislative, and I've talked about this several times in committees, we have to figure out how to quickly make the assessment of will this, whether we're right or wrong, you just have to have some kind of
You have to draw a line.
You have to draw a line. Has this family demonstrated that they're probably not going to be able to recover and get this child back?
Right.
And to give this child the opportunity to get established. I've talked to some children that have been, now they're adults, they've been through the foster care program, and they were in it for, let's just say 12 years. And been in as many as 25 different homes.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine
Yeah.
moving 25
Yes.
times with all of your items in a garbage bag?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but as a child, right? And so how traumatic is that?
And they don't get a vote.
And they don't get a vote. They don't have a voice. They don't. Exactly right. They're just moved. And so we've got to figure out how to make that decision, because I want the children to stay with their parents and their family if
Absolutely.
at all possible.
If they can.
If at all possible.
But they have to be more.
Yeah.
There's got to be. I mean, when a mother gives birth to a baby, the baby is addicted to meth or whatever other drug.
Sure.
And then you have she goes off and maybe she maybe that wakes her up and she wants to be clean.
Yep.
But is it really in the baby's best interest to wait 3 years or even 2 years to come back and say, oh, we're going to go through this whole process, we're going to work her back in, and then now we're going to just eventually take that baby out of that
Yeah.
where these were people who might want to, I mean they want to, I'm speaking of situations where these foster parents want to foster to adopt,
Sure.
not just foster
to foster.
Because what we were talking about the other one,
They're not in it for the money. They're not in fostering for the money.
We definitely need to look at the foster, the foster care for as employment situation. I think that's a whole nother ball of wax.
That's right.
But at least
talk about a rabbit hole.
But
for special needs people, there is an element to this is economic. Yes, they're in it for the money.
Right.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that fortunately for us is that Indiana, we're right beside Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana has been considered to have the model language for adoptions. And so right beside us, right across the river, right? So they're considered the model in the nation. And so what I've done is I've gotten their language, 81 pages of language.
That's
and
good.
So we'll be looking through that to see
Good.
if we can model Indiana.
That's good.
And what modifications need to be
So-
made.
I'm all for stealing from other legislators,
course,
right? I mean, there's no
Well,
reason to.
right.
If you find something that works, you might
best
as well
form
copy.
of flattery is
That's
plagiarism.
exactly
that's
right.
right.
That's
So,
right.
and they've been partners with our state for
Yeah.
the entire
forever.
history of Kentucky. So
That's exactly right. So we know that there's nothing that we have that's perfect, and so we're very interested in making every one of our processes. and
I'm
laws better.
excited to hear that. I think our followers would love to know that too, because there has to be a pathway for supporting life.
Absolutely.
And it does not need layers and layers of bureaucracy that prevent that and that long-term sustainable life, not in and out of foster care like you were talking about. So
Let's take a note. And we need to do a show on the foster care and where that's at and what legislation that the foster care system
I think
needs.
the Dobbs decision is driving a need
Absolutely.
for our party, the conservative party of the United States, to come up with a better way of handling our social safety net.
sure.
That's right.
We
So-
need to focus it upon. We need to focus it on the support of and the restoration of families as the key unit by which we humanize human beings. We socialize them through a family, and so I mean, for the vast majority of this country's history, when we had an irresponsible mother, as an example, the mother's sister, the mother's mother, the mother's grandmother, the mother's aunt, the mother's brother-in-law, somebody stepped up to the plate and said, you know what, we're not going to, that doesn't fly, Nancy, we're not going to do that.
That's correct.
And so we don't need to take the child to the state of Kentucky. Okay. Now, a big problem with this discussion right here that we're not really tuning into is the fact that families have so disintegrated in front of our eyes that families are not willing to step up and take care of a baby.
Yeah.
And that's a travesty. And we need to address that forthrightly in our policy.
Sure.
I think, and of course, I'm probably talking national, but I mean, I still think that there's an element here for our state legislature. We need to do what we can to encourage and to make it possible financially for families to take care of their own first.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then beyond that, if the child has to be removed from that family, and I'm not talking about nuclear family, I'm talking about a bigger family. If that happens, then we need to quickly make that child a part of another family.
So, Joe, I don't agree with you 100% on that. I'll tell you why. From my own personal experience, I can tell you that sometimes the inner core extends, and it extends. So the result of the current, if we were talking about the unit that can't take care of the child, that probably extends to the parental unit. There are layers of this over time. I think that we have done ourselves as a country an injustice in how we parent. I go back to the Andy Griffith show when, Jed Clampett comes in and puts all this gumball in Opie Taylor's head. And Andy says, no, sir, after you leave town, I'll be dealing with taking all that garbage out of that boy's head for years to come because you've got him all scrambled up in his brains. And there's only one person that should parent that boy, and that's me. Problem is, you don't have parents like Andy Taylor. Even as a single parent, thinking of their children and how they should be raised. You've got other people raising their children and they're hands off. So if they're not able to raise their own children, why should they be allowed to raise the child of the child that can't be raised?
How is that? How can the government, because we are talking about the government here, how does the government step in and make that decision?
Well, I think that's what she was saying earlier. We got to look at what's the right temperature check to make sure that the child is placed in the best interest. Yeah.
Well, and I think that, and Joe, this is a whole
another subject.
There's another rabbit hole. It's really not the government's responsibility.
That's right.
And I think one of you all have already said that.
Government
to
can't
me,
do
it's
it.
the community. It's the community.
I wish the government could, but it can't.
And it's
Well,
the
shouldn't.
churches. It truly is the community through the churches.
That's right.
I'm gonna say that, I'm glad you said that because that's exactly the right thing is that
and I'm not passing the buck, guys.
No.
But
but
that
we
goes
are
back
the
to what I
church.
was talking about.
When you
community.
talk about
your
the church.
community and its neighbors and its people, it takes a village to raise you know what I mean?
Well, I don't want to get into. I don't know if that I don't want to get into that
Go ahead.
phrase. That's a whole other phrase.
I'll stick to the
because
church,
it takes a village. That means they want to raise your children.
That's right.
Right, and that's not what I mean. That's not what
the community values.
The community values, the support mechanism to make sure that when you make a mistake, it's not devastating to you.
True.
Right? It's not, I'm not going to be able to go to college. Well, if a young lady gets pregnant and she wants to be able to go to college, we need to help her. We as a community, not as the government, churches,
When I was 12
community.
years old, my uncle shot my aunt. Now, my aunt was dead. There was a 2-year-old child and a 5-year-old child. My cousins. My cousin, my male cousin, the 2-year-old, he came to live with us. He's my brother now. The female was taken by the maternal, the dead mother's family. She came to live with us at times during when it was too difficult for them to deal with her, they sent her to us. But that's what I'm talking about. We as a government, policymakers, we have to figure out a government that's going to encourage the formulation and the continuation of those types of families.
Of the family units.
They're going to take
exactly
responsibility for
make it easier for families to get
members
in that situation to get WIC. Make sure there's programs
Exactly.
we like.
Kinship
There's
care.
there's programs out there that
it's
we
about
don't
educating
disagree
those
with
too.
because we want to be able to support a mother and her child, a young family. we keep saying mother and child because we're talking about abortion and
there's a father involved in all
but
this.
There's a father in that.
Right. That's right.
And that's another thing that happened. Man, we're way off. We're going way
You're
down.
fine.
Well, let's.
Nobody sticks to my agenda at all.
You're next. I'm transitioning.
We beat up Joe for a week about his.
He's up next.
And so, well, yeah, we
have 20
got,
minutes.
15 minutes.
2 hours about stay tuned.
So
Nancy asked how much time she could have before we started,
and we said we'll give her as much as she wants.
But you can say this about this segment, and I'm going to kind of pull it in for a second. Nancy, I think we threw every kind of rock at you that you've been taking for our state.
That's right.
So just, I mean, and if there's somebody else out there, Nancy's phone is always on, her email is always open, and if you got different rocks that you think that we didn't cover that you should throw to challenge the situation, challenge it.
That's right.
There is a legislation in place right now to make this a law, but it is left in the hands of the voters.
That's right.
And
when it comes to changing the Constitution.
That's right. It is left in the hand of the voters. So she is on the squawk box, ready to take all of that negative, positive, and go to bat for this right to life.
That's correct.
And I mean, I think we threw you enough dirt today, but we're going to change this.
That's not right.
Why is that not right?
She's not doing it for a right to life. She's doing it to clarify that the legislature is in control of this. The judicial branch cannot be in control of this.
That
They
is
cannot
absolutely
seize control. That's what the amendment does. It doesn't say, I'm a pro-life, so I'm voting for this. That's not what. That's what.
It's we are constitutionalists.
If you're a civic-minded person,
we're constitutionalists.
if you're focused on a limited constitutional government, then this is a really good way. Both of these are actually they're both amendments are clarifying and codifying into our state constitution the fact that we believe in these things.
Joe, I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah.
There was a method to my madness. Why I said it the way I said it is because your Democratic opponents, our Democratic opponents, are going to use the right for life that you're taking away women's rights to go against us and the November 8th election. That's why you need to vote yes, and don't listen to the rhetoric. You heard it here first. This is a constitutional amendment because we are a constitutional nation, a nation of laws. I want to transition the conversation to an interesting topic that Joe brought up last week, and I'm going to give him the lead. But it is about the Speaker of the House and how is such a person chosen? Joe, take us into this new segment as we challenge the rules of engagement.
There's been a lot of discussion since January of 21 when President Trump was sent back to Florida to be a private citizen, a former president, that, there was discussion about him running for re-election and everything, you know. I mean, he's going to be an older gentleman at the time. So a lot of people were discussing how do we manage to utilize his popularity, being part of the reason people like me, I'm a conservative. I believe in the Conservative Party. Anything that's going to make the Conservative Party stronger, bigger, better, more populist, if you will, I tend to favor that. I put aside all of my concerns about Trump and his past billionaire, philandering ways and things like that. I put aside the fact that, hey, look, I believe that leadership is really a test of character. First and foremost, beyond anything else, it's a test of character. And what is this person's character? That's a conservative concept. But the conservatives who actually they took that little hook and they dragged a 10,000-pound fish out of the water with that one little hook. I pointed out to them that they really weren't serious about this government, about being a conservative, because that was just one thing about Trump. What about the rest? And of course, 4 years later, me and people like me were exonerated on that issue because Trump governed for 4 years more conservatively. I believe more conservative than Ronald Reagan did.
That's right.
I believe he did. And I believe if we'd give him 4 more years to clean up the swamp in Washington, D.C., I believe that the country would have been way better off. Now, having said all that, we're talking about how do we utilize Trump's popularity. He got more votes for president than anyone in the history of the country, except for one person, Joe Biden. Right? He got more votes than anybody. How do we use that? How do we capitalize on that popularity?
If I may, on that note, real quick, I don't want to steer you too far off course. In the state of Kentucky, and we've had this on previous episodes, our county clerks have done a great job at removing the deceased voters, so you will not have to worry about an election in Kentucky where a deceased person showed up at the polls and actually voted.
Well, Nancy won't be caught campaigning in any cemeteries. Okay?
I got you. Anyway, keep going. I just wanted to make that announcement.
No Republican would be.
170,000 people have been removed from the voter rolls.
So. All of the
and why did certain people fight that? Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it makes sense if you need to have some extra votes every once in a while.
Well, I got it. But we're back on topic. So to stir the pot.
Well, to stir the pot, there's the Speaker of the House. There's no constitutional requirement that they be a member of the House. The membership of the House, the majority at the federal level, yes. Mm-hmm. There may be. Yes, I have no idea about the state.
State level, there is.
There is. Okay.
I've looked it up. Yep.
But at the federal level in the state U.S. Constitution, there is no provision that says this person must be. Now, having said that, I want to make the argument against. I mean, because I think the legal argument against it is that the constitutional hierarchy of control of our federal government. In the case of emergency, it goes from the president to the vice president to the Speaker of the House.
I was about to mention the significance of the position of the Speaker of the House.
The significance of the Speaker of the House means that person is a member of the House of Representatives, the federal branch of our legislature that is closest to the people. And so a judge, a federal judge, and the Supreme Court could, if this is litigated, Speaker Trump is actually in control of the House of Representatives.
Okay, I don't want to be clear. Hold on. I want to be clear to the audience.
I don't think we've actually gone down that. Explain that yet.
To be clear to the audience, this all was prefaced based off of the idea that somebody had made the mention that we should appoint President Trump to be the Speaker of the House when we win the election in November 8th and we turn the tide in the House and the Senate, and we are the majority party in both houses, House and Senate. And the constitutional crisis or conversation that could be a crisis is, after long history and tradition, it's always been the senior member of the House for that party or they're duly elected.
The most powerful.
That's right. And because there is no constitutional discretion regarding who should be the Speaker of the House, there is guidance on how to select the Speaker of the House.
There's a guidance that says it should be their choice.
So to stir the pot, the conversation was, wouldn't it be funny if we elect a Republican president in the next election and we appoint President Trump to be the Speaker of the House? So not only would we have a president.
You said president.
Right.
He is
I'm talking president. 2023 and 2022.
Well, I got you. True that.
435.
That's right. We don't have to wait till the next president. But the follow-on would be is that you've got all of our members of House and nobody distracted by the Speaker of the House, which is an extra voting member, and then Donald Trump playing the wild card.
And there's no requirement for the Speaker to vote on anything. As a matter of fact,
in theory, we could actually do this after November 8th.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. In theory. But you know that the Democrats actually the Democrats were looking ahead of this, right? Because this is not the first time it came up. This actually came up in 2018. No, not 2018. I'm sorry, in 2020, 2021. And in July of 2021, there's an article in the Hill by Christina Marcos. In July of 21, and it talks about that the Democrats unveiled a bill to allow only members of the House members to serve as Speaker. Now, I don't think it went anywhere. I couldn't find anything on here of where it went, but it was. But they were thinking along those lines because they are afraid of it, right? They could only imagine what would happen if that happened.
Well, and there's no law that they can pass no law that they can pass to govern that process.
It would have to be a constitutional
It would be a
amendment.
constitutional
It would have to be a
amendment
constitutional
because
amendment.
Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution
Okay.
says only that the House shall choose their Speaker and other officers.
That's right.
If they wanted to go against that by maybe they have a policy or that
Well,
they do
It's
internally. that's
vague
fine.
enough.
It's vague. But
It's vague enough that it doesn't say how they choose it. So therefore they can actually do a bill that says how they do it.
that's right. Which would become a
can't do a
law.
bill.
No, it'd have to be a constitutional amendment.
A bill,
No, it wouldn't have to be an amendment.
No,
No, it would not, because that bill would not counter that amendment.
The U.S. Senate has no say over this.
No, it would.
This is House process.
I understand.
You can't pass a law that says this.
They can.
And it won't. It will not for the next House of Representatives. It will not be bound. They won't be bound.
If it's a law, they would be.
But
They would have to. They would
what I'm
have.
saying to you is they can't
would
pass
have
a
to-
law that bounds the next House of Representatives.
Right.
All right.
They can't do it.
Oh, that's not true.
The House of Representatives is governed by the Constitution.
No,
there's
no,
a law.
and the laws and the laws. They would have to pass a law to. Okay, so you're saying, listen. You're saying that if the current House of Representatives passes a law today, let's say that the national speed limit is 65.
You can
They
smoke.
can't change it next time.
Hey, we're gonna say you can smoke marijuana.
Okay, the thing is,
okay, but
so they can
let's
smoke
say-
marijuana.
Hey, you can finally
But
smoke
members of the House of
marijuana.
Okay, you can-
Representatives cannot or can smoke marijuana.
No,
or can or can't.
no,
They
that-
make a
the
law that
people-
says that the people can
This
smoke
is the
marijuana.
process.
Let's say they wanted to do,
This has got nothing to do with the American people.
but it does.
It does.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
This has to do with the
It-
House process.
It
Hold
doesn't
on.
matter. They can
I-
still pass a law.
Yeah.
Nancy,
Can't pass
what's
a
your
law.
thought on this?
So Joe is right. The current legislative body cannot pass legislation that would bound the future legislative
That's
body.
right.
It doesn't bound the future legislation
You're saying-
because any law,
Yeah.
any law can be undone by a future legislation.
So what would happen with this though is that
But it would require-
it would immediately be litigated and it would be tied up in court forever because it would be deemed to be probably unconstitutional.
That's right. So you would
Well,
need to.
you'd have to find something in the Constitution that says it's not constitutional.
I'm gonna have to go with Joe, and I think it would need to be a constitutional
I
amendment.
think it would have to be.
I don't think it has to be a constitutional
we're
amendment.
gonna hold on.
Which part
Because
of
the Constitution doesn't
you just
say it.
confused me. Which
If you
what
wanted
needs-
to
what-
specify
you want
that.
to specify that Trump could be speaker?
No, if you
That it
wanted to
could not-
specify
that it could not be.
rules
It could not be.
that it could not be.
Would have to be a constitutional amendment.
that's
Yeah.
clearly identified without
Now,
the
what I'm
vague.
saying is that I know these Democrats. You can ask me about Democrats because I know.
We don't have time for that.
Okay, but I know them.
All right.
They're not going to do what you. They're not going to do what he says.
Actually, we are going to talk
Well,
about
they
that.
they
So,
unveiled
they're
it
going
last
to
time.
sue. They're going to sue in a federal court
Guys.
on January the. I guess it's the 3rd or the 4th when the House actually gavels itself into process, and then
The federal-
it says you are here's the Speaker of the House right here. Then the next day they will have a federal lawsuit claiming that denies the constitutional hierarchy.
okay.
They're going to use
Joe,
that.
Hold on. Okay, got it. Listen, guys out there listening, everybody, ladies, gentlemen, the conversation is we want you to go look it up because it's very interesting.
It is
you,
interesting.
You can actually, we could probably have this conversation all night and end up in great debate, but that's what we're trying to tell you. The idea that this could actually be done could be. Well, it's not going to be entertaining. It could be prolific for our country if they were to push this button. It's got the Democrats so stirred up that they're actually wanting to consider figuring out how to legislate against us. To that point, we want to go into the conversation about what is a conservative because we have a lot of our Democratic foes that say, I'm a conservative. We have some Republicans that say they're conservative, but they're not a conservative. And Joe, you wanted to bring in that point, and I'd like to tie it back in because you had a couple of notes on that. Speaking of our conservatism.
For all of you paying attention out there, that's what we call a segue.
That was a segue.
Okay. Mitt Romney is a conservative person. He dresses conservatively. He acts conservatively. He leads his life in a conservative fashion. The last thing you'll probably hear about is him having a mistress on the side. He leads a conservative type life. That does not make him a conservative.
That's right.
A conservative and conservative living or conservative life are two different concepts. A conservative is someone who is going to adhere or They believe, or they have studied the issues, and an ideological clarity. They become a conservative, and there's a whole litany of precepts. I mean, I ascribe to Russell Kirk's description of conservatives. He wrote a seminal piece back in the 50s about the conservative mind and tracing where conservatism comes from. But I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, we don't trust government. We have an inherent mistrust of concentrated power. Mm-hmm. That's a conservative notion. That's not a liberal notion. A liberal notion is going to say, we need to have concentrated power so we can make changes and we can make good things happen. We need someone to have authority to be able to make this thing happen good. Well, we don't trust that. So that's the reason we don't want to issue authority to the centralized thing called government.
To make things happen the way they want them to happen.
Well, yeah, but it's a good thing. It could be a good thing too. And everybody, we'd all agree that's a pretty good thing.
Well, most of those situations start out good.
We mistrust this concentration of power. That's a conservative concept, okay? I mean, trusting the fact that we believe that people should have disparate ideas and disparate thoughts about things, and they should be allowed in the marketplace of ideas. That's a conservative concept. That's not a liberal.
Right.
It's not a progressive concept. So yes, our current judge executive is out there telling everybody he's a conservative because he goes to church. Okay, he thinks he's pro-life. He's a member of the pro-choice, the anti-life party. But he
has sworn to uphold.
That's it. He has also signed a sworn statement.
And we'll show you that.
Signing on the lawsuits and signing on things like it don't mean anything to him anyway. So I don't think his word means a lot. But the fact is that he's not a conservative. He can put himself off as a conservative person, but he's not a conservative.
Well, you notice none of his signs say I'm a Democrat.
That's correct.
No.
Because he knows that the majority of this county is.
I was driving day before yesterday. I was driving down to Battletown to the quarry to pick up some gravel, and I noticed a Leslie Stith sign on the side of the road, and it's got someone has gone on there and vandalized it.
Ooh.
I don't know who.
I said, ooh, sorry.
Yeah, that's not cool.
That's not cool.
No.
Somebody's vandalized it by they spray painted Democrat across the sign. And on the other side, they spray painted Democrat across the sign.
If I may, on that note, and I'll let Mark come in on this because he's the chair of the party. Because I am on Troy Koch's campaign and I'm helping him run it, from the Troy Koch campaign would like to apologize for that vandalism. We had nothing to do with that from Troy Koch's campaign. We plan on running a clean campaign against Leslie for this race. And I know to that extent, Mark has extended the olive branch to try to make that right. And we ask that if you're out there and you support Troy Koch, that's not how we want to win.
Absolutely.
And you're hearing that from Troy Koch's campaign manager. That's me, Stephen Lake. And I know that Troy Koch feels the same way. And our apologies to Leslie Stith for any member of our party that may have acted ill-willed, and they may just be uneducated, but that is not the level of play we plan to play in this race.
And I really hope it was not a Republican. I mean, this could be, listen, we fought against that type of
intimidation.
Intimidation and just dirty politics campaigning for years. We couldn't stand it. We had people, we had Democrats, would write, they would sneak over to our booth and they would write little things on our handout. So when we handed them out, it would have like some nasty thing on it. We were handing these things out to everybody. Anybody could see it, a kid or an adult. And it was just nasty. And they would, put, just nasty drawings and things on it. We cannot stoop to that level. So if there's a Republican out there that did this, please don't do this anymore. We now it's very possible. It's very possible that a Democrat did it. Maybe they're a little upset that he's not claiming to be a Democrat. It could go that way.
Either way, the optics are pointed our way.
So it could be a kind of a trick situation to put something in the paper.
Yeah,
we don't know. We know that I hope it's not. I hope it's not. I hope there's a legitimate reason somebody else has. It's a personal reason and not a political reason. There is no political reason to do that, and we don't in the Republican Party. And we're asking whoever did this to stop doing that. Let's go out and win on policy.
That's right.
We in the Republican Party feel that we win on policy, and that we win on character. And so let's make sure we keep the high road on this.
I think it's clear. I think it's really clear. I hope it's clear that we don't endorse vandalism.
Not
we don't
at all.
We don't endorse
Not
that.
at all.
We can't talk about being a party of law and support the Republic. Hence,
Whoever
Republican.
did this, as far as we're concerned, committed a crime. That's
right.
Call the sheriff.
So, and to that point, Joe, you brought up in the agenda, why has Democrat become such a divisive word in local politics? It's not. And on this show, we have announced on numerous occasions that we tend to believe that there are a group in the Democratic Party that follow the same similar lines, and we have the same passions and desires.
That's right.
We would like you to switch to be the Republican Party, but at the same token, there is reasons of like family values that you stay tied to your party, and there are many of our Republicans that are in the middle too that they'll vote one way or the other because they're just
Democrats don't even claim to be Democrats.
Well, I'm not going down that road. I was trying to keep it clean.
The Republican Party is the conservative party.
That's right.
I'm trying to have I'm trying to spur.
Well, I know, and it's frustrating.
Discussion.
It's frustrating.
I'm not trying to talk about.
It's frustrating that for years and years we have
and tearing down signs. That's always the Democrats did in the past.
Well, I know, but I think what we're trying to say is that we recognize that there are a lot of really good Democrats out there. They're law-abiding, church-going, family-supporting, supportive of our community, and so we don't want to insult or ostracize anybody in that categorization in that party.
But they also need to realize that they're supporting by being registered a Democrat.
That's correct.
You are supporting 100%
the Democratic agenda.
The Democratic agenda, which left Kentuckians behind years ago.
That's right.
Maybe our governor loves it. Maybe it didn't leave our governor behind. You saw how he reacted to everything. It doesn't leave the majority of Louisville behind, right? Because they need centralized government. That's why the cities are where Democrats are always found, right? They're centralized in the cities because they all pile in because they want to make sure that they need somebody to take care of these things and show me how to live and things like that. And we don't believe in that. We believe in freedom, and we believe in that each family should be able to tell themselves, to make that next step for themselves. Not, if something happens, I'm glad the government's there to maybe lend a hand or give us a safety net, but let us live. And as long as I'm not, trying to step on Steve's toes or Nancy's toes or Joe's toes, with my rights and what I'm trying to do, let us live.
So I just want to end on the divisiveness. There is already enough divisiveness in this nation. We do not need it in our county. At the end of this race, I promise you that we will all go on living in a harmonious community fashion, and we will all work together to achieve the same common goals. We may not agree with each other, but I promise you that we can still love one another. And that's not what you're getting at the national level. You will get that in this county, regardless of your race, creed, gender, or political affiliation. I think I'm glad to have this show. The Mead Truth has been an inspiration to me and from you guys. I think having the ability to have an outlet to just have a conversation. There's been some feedback in the chat. I definitely think we've hit some notes tonight. In fact, there was a comment in there about somebody who was asking for some help and a donation, much to the point of there are families in need in our own county that could use some support and love. And creating pathways to get there starts with constitutional law.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
Can't be more glad to have had you on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Joe, the topic tonight has been super amazing. We've got a couple of events to share with you before we close it out. Mark?
This Monday is the Meade County Republican Party regular meeting. It'll be at 7 o'clock. It's going to be at the headquarters at 2714 Brandenburg Road. That's in, for those of you that know Brandenburg, it's Brandenburg Station, just past Tony Brown, just past Tony Brown on the way into Brandenburg, just before Tony Brown, before if you're coming out of Brandenburg, and then also I want you guys, we want to get out and support Troy Koch. We're right now working on some different meet and greets in the area. And guys, if you would like to have Troy come into, come and sit down with you and your group of friends, we want to try to make that happen. So give us a call or text us here on the show in the chat, or you can give us a call at 270-945-3418. That's the Meade County Republican Party, and we'll try to make that happen for you. And I think that he would love to come out and talk to you and meet with you.
Folks, that's the end of the show. I'm the greasy-haired Texan. Glad to put it on for you, and glad to make your acquaintance. Thanks for being in our home tonight. Have a great day.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.